Through their duel in Episode 3 and the Jedi Master's successful escape, there was no question for Emperor Palpatine that Yoda didn't just survive Order 66, but its aftermath as well, going into hiding during the era of the Empire. In the opening weeks of the Imperial era, Darth Sidious would explicitly tell his apprentice Darth Vader that Yoda survived and was somewhere hidden within the galaxy. As we've discussed in a previous video, this was also understood by Vader only months before the events of Episode 4, where he understood the Sith could make no assumptions about Yoda's death, despite his old age. In short, Sidious and Vader knew for decades that Yoda was alive, one of the few Jedi who survived the initial onslaught of Order 66 and then avoided detection by the Empire. Now, to say that Sidious didn't attempt to locate Yoda at all wouldn't be true. The Empire had a bounty on Yoda, and while we don't know exactly what it was greater than 30,000 credits, and significant enough where bounty hunters were attempting to collect the bounty through various methods of fraud. This forced the Empire to set strict conditions for Yoda's bounty, requiring capture of the Jedi alive, and implementing immediate execution for anyone who attempted to collect the bounty through fraud. So certainly, it's not as if Sidious was actively trying to prevent the capture of Yoda. This video will not be about why Sidious couldn't find Yoda, or conversely, the way in which Yoda was able to successfully avoid detection for so long. We've discussed in previous videos how Dagobah was ideal for Yoda's exile, with its presence in the Outer Rim and physical features such as the Dark Side Cave helping to hide his presence in the light side of the Force. Instead, we'll focus on the Legends lore that shows that Sidious wasn't only unconcerned with the fact that Yoda was alive somewhere in the galaxy, but almost approved of the fact that the Jedi was forced to live through the era of the Empire and its rule by the Sith. You get the feeling that if Sidious wanted to, he could have devoted the almost endless resources of the Empire to find the Jedi Grandmaster. But he didn't, and so let's look at why that was. First, it's clear in Legends that for Sidious, Order 66 had succeeded in its primary goal. It completely annihilated the Jedi as a ruling order within the galaxy, leaving the Jedi broken and destroyed, and successfully carrying out Darth Bane's grand plan by instituting an empire ruled by the Sith. In the novel Dark Lord: The Rise of Darth Vader, as Sidious would explain to his apprentice, who at the time had difficulty understanding why they weren't hunting down the Jedi survivors of the Purge, the most important reality of the new empire was that the Jedi Order had been crushed and was finished. While it was clear that a number of Jedi survived, they could merely be located and dealt with at a later time of their choosing. Within the Purge comic, when Vader attempted to argue that the surviving Jedi could be a danger to the Empire, Sidious thought that belief was ridiculous. The few survivors that remained were scattered throughout the galaxy, and as the Dark Lord told Vader, Yoda had already tried to defeat him and failed. Therefore, the Jedi were of no concern to Sidious, even Yoda. They were not a danger to him or the rule of the Sith. And to make it even more obvious, in the Dark Times Blue Harvest comic, Sidious clearly had contingency plans in place should Jedi survivors like Yoda attempt to challenge them, telling Vader that should any Jedi attempt to raise a hand against them, he already had in motion a plan to deal with them. The impossibility of them challenging Sidious was a fact that Jedi like Obi-Wan and Yoda already knew, demonstrated through their unwavering exile, but also in scenes from the Dark Lord novel where Obi-Wan would grow increasingly frustrated when hearing how Jedi survivors of Order 66 attempted to ally together to confront the Empire, only to be annihilated. Clearly, the most important element for Sidious following Order 66 was the destruction of the Jedi as an order. As Sidious made sure Vader understood, preoccupation with chasing rumors and hunting down those Jedi who survived the Purge was a meaningless endeavor. For Sidious, the Jedi who survived, even Yoda, were nothing, a term repeated by the Sith Lord in the Dark Lord novel and Purge comic, and attempting to push Order 66 further by dealing with every last remaining Jedi was a preoccupation that took the Sith away from their more important goals, extending Imperial rule across the galaxy and unlocking the full secrets from the dark side. It was clear Yoda missed his opportunity to defeat him, and should he try again, Sidious had plans in place to deal with the challenge. But while Sidious was satisfied with the ultimate destruction of the Jedi Order and was happy to consider Yoda as a meaningless holdover from the previous era, there was perhaps an even more important reason why Sidious didn't concern himself with hunting down the Jedi Grandmaster. Keeping Yoda alive would allow the Order's Grandmaster to humble himself before the Sith and see the error in the Jedi rejection of the dark side. In bringing about the Sith Grand Plan, it wasn't solely about propelling the Sith to power, although that of course was a major end goal. The Sith Lords of the Rule of Two era didn't just recognize that the Sith and dark side deserved to rule the galaxy, but they legitimately saw the Jedi Order as having failed completely. As Darth Plagueis would explain to his apprentice Sidious, in the millennium before the end of the new Sith Wars, the Jedi had grown arrogant, their philosophy having fallen out of alignment with the Force itself. And this wasn't merely a biased view adopted by Plagueis, given his allegiance to the Sith. For Plagueis, as the dark side grew in power through the efforts of each succeeding Sith Master and apprentice, with the balance actually tipping towards the dark side in the era of Plagueis and Sidious, Plagueis believed the Force itself was rejecting the Jedi Order. The Jedi had grown so complacent over the centuries, they were no longer equipped for the era they found themselves in by the time of Darth Plagueis' reign as Dark Lord. Rather than rededicate themselves to the will of the Force, Plagueis knew the Jedi would simply stay comfortable in what he referred to as their castle on Coruscant, and simply attempt to double their meditation efforts, only to find their visions of the future clouded. In short, the Jedi were no longer servants of the Force or light side, but enforcers of the Republic, plagued by their hubris and blind obedience to their own self-assurance. While these views were expressed by Plagueis to Sidious within the Darth Plagueis novel, they were certainly adopted by the Dark Lord's apprentice, and I believe this is crucial to why Sidious was happy to allow Yoda to survive to some extent after Episode 3. In reference to Yoda's survival within the Dark Lord novel, Sidious echoed the sentiments of his master in telling Vader that in forcing the Jedi survivors of Order 66 to hide upon remote worlds within the galaxy, they humbled themselves before the Sith. And even more important, Sidious believed that this was necessary, for their isolation and removal from galactic affairs meant that they would be able to atone for the previous 1,000 years in which they allowed themselves to be consumed by their own arrogance and self-absorption. In this way, it sounds a lot like gloating and almost basking in the victory of the Sith, but based upon the Plagueis novel, I believe Sidious actually meant it. From the point of view of the Sith in the Rule of Two era, the Jedi needed to answer for their centuries of hubris and arrogance. Therefore, although Sidious wasn't concerned with Yoda's survival after Episode 3, as he knew there was no danger directly from him, and because the important goal of the Jedi Order's destruction had been achieved, there was also the valuable element of Yoda humbling himself before the Sith. By allowing Yoda to live through the Imperial era, Sidious could enjoy the fact the Grand Master of the Jedi was forced to answer for the previous era of the Order, atoning for their arrogance and self-absorption that was preyed upon by Bane's Rule of Two. So there we have it, why Sidious wasn't concerned about locating Yoda after Episode 3, despite knowing that he survived. Thank you very much to all of the Patreon members of Star Wars Reading Club, as your support is so greatly appreciated. You can find all of our social media links and a link to our Star Wars gaming channel in the description below, for updates and even more Star Wars content. We love making these videos, so why not subscribe for more fun Star Wars theories and discussions. Also, if you enjoyed the video, think about giving a like or leaving a comment. If not for me, for definitely not seeing this coming.